it's Nancy with Wire Tamers, and today is Fun with Torch Day. But first of all, I'd like to invite you to like this video and comment below if you have any comments. I'd love to read them. If you like this type of content, just subscribe to my channel and you can see more of them. First of all, before we get started having fun with our torch, we need to be safe from our torch. These torches, I don't remember how hot they get, but you can burn your whole house down and your neighbor's house down, and then you won't have any friends left. And that's not any way to start a relationship with a neighbor. Personal safety, you will always want to wear your safety glasses. And there are glasses, if your eyes are sensitive, that you can wear to protect your eyes against some of the light that is emitted by the torches. Not so much by butane, but this applies to any torch you use, and sometimes we'll be using an acetylene torch, and it applies to the acetylene torch probably more than butane. But safety glasses are important. You could have little tiny pieces of metal that will fly up sometimes from the force of the torch, and this will stop them from flying into your eyes or close to your eyes. Second thing we want to do is we always want to have a heat-proof surface. This is a soldering block, and on top of it I've got a soldering brick. And that protects my table from the heat that I use with the torch. I have also, very handily, I have my fire extinguisher. If anything happens, I will jump up and grab it, and I can easily put out a fire, I would hope, that would occur. Tools that you need to help protect yourself are implements to maneuver your pieces, especially when you're soldering. You put that flux on and you put solder on there and you hit it with a torch, and that solder is going to jump off and really, it can make you lose your religion really fast. But have your implements ready. I'm right-handed, so I have them by my right hand where I can move the solder back. I can pick it up and put it back on. I can move my little piece if it has moved, and that way I have everything I need there. I'm going to use my torch in my non-dominant hand while I am using my implements with my dominant hand. You've got to watch your torch. You don't want to be so involved in getting your solder that your torch torches you. So the best thing you can do, if you are going to turn your attention away from your torch tip, is just turn it off. That way there is no danger. When you are very comfortable with a torch, you can get to where you can maneuver while you're torching, and that's okay too, as long as you are confident and you don't let that torch wander. Another helper and safety item is a third hand. This is a third hand here with cross-lock tweezers. Cross-lock tweezers are great, and you can use those without the third hand also, because they hold on to items. You can put something in here, hold on to it, and you can have it holding something down, and you can solder it, or you can solder something upright, which isn't always easy to do. And it will hold things until you release it. These also have wooden handles, and so they don't get hot, and there's no danger of burning myself if I'm releasing an object. So those are the main safety items that you need when you are using any kind of a torch. And let's get to our project and have fun with our torch. Alright, today what we're doing is we are going to take junk and make cute stuff. These are an example of some of the items that I find when I'm hiking, my husband finds on the roadways, And we just pick up trash, we clean up the environment, and I make some admittedly odd, but definitely unusual items. I've made a lot of jewelry, wire wrapping, and doing that kind of thing, and I want to try soldering now. I don't know for sure how this is going to turn out because it's only been done in my brain. I've not done it physically. I know other people do it, but I'm not sure what their process is or what kind of solder they use. So I'm just going to try out. I've got a couple different solders, and so we'll just see what happens. So I'm going to put this stuff aside. This is some of the stuff that I've done. And I'm going to solder this face, which, if you can see it, looks like a face to me. I've sanded off parts where it's going to be soldered, except I didn't sand up here with the spring, and we'll just see if it takes it all. But I've sanded the other parts down to where I got shiny metal, and so that hopefully that solder will stick. I've left parts of it with the rust and the natural patina because that's really how I like to see it rather than shiny metal. The silver, of course, the silver solder is going to be shiny. I use lead-free solder. It's not a good idea to use leaded solder, and I don't even know if they sell leaded solder anymore. But if they do, we're not going to use it here. So I'm doing this face, I'm doing a little figure of a man, I'm doing 2 stars, and the stars are made with washers that were found, but with nails that I purchased. So, first of all, I'm going to get this little thing fixed back up here where it was. I'm using an acetylene torch. It's got kind of a smallish head that allows for control, and allows for a little better control than the larger butane one that I use at times. So I'm going to light the torch. This is my acetylene torch. It's got acetylene and it's got oxygen. It makes a very, very hot flame. I've got my soldering block, and I've got a flame-proof and fireproof brick under it. It's not really a brick, it's a board that I bought, but you can solder on it. It can withstand temperatures of several thousand degrees. The charcoal block, I use that because it reflects heat back up. It absorbs heat, reflects heat back up, so you get heat from the top, from your flame, from your torch, and from the bottom, so it warms up pieces and makes the soldering process easier. This is a little torch lighter. It makes a little spark so that I don't have to use a striker. And this is my magnetic torch holder. It's very handy for putting the torch down when this little head is hot. When you first put the torch out, that head is very hot, and you have to be very careful where you're pointing it. So put it there, and it's kept out of the way, and nobody gets burnt. So I've got several places that I'm soldering. I thought I'd just heat it up and try to solder it all at once. It may turn out to be a mess, but we won't know till we get there. So I'm going to put the solder over here. I operate the torch with my non-dominant hand and all my utensils, just in case something should get out of place. I can put it back in place with either soldering pick or my tweezers, and we're going to light the torch. The torch, when you first light it, makes black. It makes black dirt. Acetylene is unfortunately a very dirty flame. So I think maybe turn it down a little bit. I don't need quite that big of a flame. That was a little too big, so try this, and I'm going to try soldering. I usually don't use this type of solder. I usually use the little pieces that I clip off and set into place for jewelry, but we will see. First, I'm going to try warming it up. I have to be very careful. I don't know where these objects have been. I don't really know what's on them. I don't clean them beforehand. This is already getting quite hot, and I've already knocked that off. So let's put that back into place, and that heated up. Of course, that's very thin. Just heat it up quickly. I'm going to that probably did not melt in there. Let's see. That's not working quite the way I envisioned it, but let's just keep going. That is flaming up because there is, in the center, it has a rosin core, which is flux, which is why I did not go ahead and flux this. This needs to be heated until it melts down into the seam. To get in there, see if I can get it to melt into where I want it to go. I'm going to heat this whole thing up. It's on fire. And this may be just too hot of a flame for this. So we're going to try a different solder, and we'll be back in just a minute. All right, we are ready. These out of the way, and I'm going to use some spray flux on this one. Spray it good. And light my torch. Woohoo! All right, that should be good. And we will see. I think I will spray flux one more time to warm this up. The white block is getting all black. If you couldn't tell, I haven't used this before. First time using this block, I really like it. Because you can stick things in there and you can make them stay, bend them to your will. So I'm going to get this nice and hot. You just have to have enough heat. Sometimes I tend to not get enough heat on my pieces when I'm soldering. And I think it comes from a fear that I'm going to just melt everything and ruin it. Because there are a lot of stories that people have been working on jewelry and have used too much torch and have melted their pieces. And that makes me very unhappy. So I'm going to try to get this where I want it to go. It looks like it went in there. And that's that. So we will see what happens. That is very hot. And so these are the two pieces I'm going to do. I don't have any more blocks, and these need to cool. I'm going to need to use this one again for my other star. So at the end, I will show you what that star looked like, and we will be back in a jiffy after we get through pickling and doing some other stuff. All right, we're back to the drawing board. I've kind of taken the pieces from the first figure that I was trying to do and set it aside, because now that it's got fire scale, it's going to have to be cleaned up before I try soldering it again. And so I will try later, I will try soldering that after I get it cleaned up with some of this other solder that I have, that I'm going to try soldering this tiny piece with. The solder that I'm using now is not got a core, does not have flux, and so I'm going to use a liquid flux to put on here. Flux helps the solder flow. You're not going to get any soldering action at all unless you have flux. That could have been a problem with the other piece, and it may work better to flux it. This might even work better with some paste flux. So now that I'm thinking about it, I think that maybe the best thing to do would be to paint on some flux. This will be hopefully a better way to flux it. I can get a thick coat of flux on. Flux helps protect the piece, helps eliminate fire scale, and it helps the solder to flow. So this little piece here is one that I'm going to put on. I'm going to flux the other pieces and then flux that piece. I have to be a little careful because the brick is still hot from my previous attempt. This will make solder on the board, which may make the little figure stick to the board some, but that's okay. It's already getting hot. And I'm going to flux this piece also. Still am trying to get the hang of using a flux that is on a wire that you apply that way. Now, I have seen people that take the solder and they apply it the way you do with jewelry, where you cut pieces off and you stick pieces on, but I'm not entirely comfortable with that. So I'm just going to try doing it this way. I need to move the flux out of the way. Try not to set anything on fire that shouldn't be on fire. And light my torch. Turn the acetylene on first, light it, add the oxygen a little bit at a time until I get the flame that I want. And we will start soldering. First, I'm going to warm the pieces up, and they're going to sizzle. Flux will turn white and helps, kind of like a glue, it kind of helps to hold pieces in place. Once that stops boiling and moving around, then I'm going to try soldering. Let's see if we've got this up to the right temperature. Get it good and hot. Now the flux has gotten glassy. And it's moving around. doesn't look like that's working either, so it could be that I just don't ever get it truly hot enough. That is hot. I'm going to turn this off. Whoa, that oxygen pops every once in a while. It's off. And let this cool. And it might be soldered. What I want to do, that's kind of moving. That's not a good time to move this. So, what I'm going to do is move this aside, and I'm going to move this brick. This may be a better choice for the stars that I want to do. It's a little bit cleaner. This is anyway. And I have some little, these are drywall screws or some kind of screws. And what I want to do is make a star. The advantage is on this surface, I can use pins, and I can pin my items down to keep them where they need to be. So, hopefully, can you all see this star? Hopefully it looks like a star. And I'm going to pin this. And I will put pins on either side of this to keep this where I want it to be while I'm soldering. So that's going to be right there. Move that up. That looks pretty good. Now I'm going to fix the rest of this, and I will be back with you in just a minute. We'll do fast forward. Here we are back again in the blink of an eye for you, and I have more or less cleaned these up. I don't want them to be real clean. They're going to be rustic looking, and I'm okay with that. I put them in a pickling solution. Pickle is just something that is used to clean up the metal. It removes fire scale. There is a different pickle that you use for anything with steel in it, because the pickle that you use for copper and brass and silver is inactivated when you use steel in it. So I have two different pots, and one of them I have Spherex for my copper, brass, and silver. And the other one I have a mixture of vinegar and salt. It's 1 cup of vinegar to 1 tablespoon of salt. And that is the pickle that I'm using for my steel. So you can see here that the soldering process is complete. I have 2 stars. They're soldered together. They're strong. They're not breaking. It's not coming apart. I'm very happy with the way those turned out. This one is a little bit weaker, but I'm going to resolder that little piece on that's on where the seam was in this ring, and I think that did that one in. This little guy I'm real happy with. He is solid and not going to break. And it's like a little figure with 2 legs, 2 arms, and a little head. So that is what I've done today, and that is soldering junk. Thanks a lot for watching, and we'll see you on the next video. Don't forget, if you like this video, please click the like button. If you like content, just subscribe to my channel, and you'll get more content like this. If you have any comments, just leave them below. Thanks a lot. Bye.